Hello and welcome to another Big Data London webinar. Today we're talking about digital product analytics and how to retain customers using them. So I'm Andy Steed, Content Director of Big Data London, and I'm pleased today to be joined by Max from Nutmeg and Chris from Amplitude. These sessions are designed to be interactive, so please do send your questions in using the question box underneath the screen there. And we'll endeavour to ask as many as we can to Chris and Max in the amount of time we've allotted for questions. Any problems with the browser? There shouldn't be, or the player? There absolutely shouldn't be, but if there is, hit refresh in your browser and you should jump straight back in here. So I'd like to pass over now to our featured presenters. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Andy, and good afternoon, everyone. So appreciate you joining us for the session this afternoon. I am going to introduce Max in a few minutes, but I just want to take a couple of minutes out to, I guess, introduce you to Amplitude and share a few slides about who we are and what we do. And hopefully that'll give you some better context when we move on to the conversation with Max and Nutmeg. So with that, I'm going to endeavour to share my screen. Chrome tab. Andy, can you see that? Everyone see that?
Yep, all good.
Great, good, thank you. So yeah, look, thank you again for joining us. I will come back and introduce Max in a moment. This is a very forgiving and a little bit old LinkedIn photo of me, but my name is Chris Bown. I run our UK and Nordics business here at Amplitude. And for those of you who don't know us, I'm just going to kind of give a quick introduction. So Amplitude are, I guess, perhaps a fairly well kept secret. We are leaders in product analytics. So we help organizations understand what users' behaviors are within their digital products and apps, and to start to give you the ability to really dive into understanding what users are doing, what are kind of key to perhaps retention, where users are dropping off, and to really start to drive valuable insights that you can then take action from. We help an awful lot of customers do this today, both true digital natives and perhaps organizations that have pivoted to meeting their customers through their digital channels. And there's some information here about who we are. We've been going actually about 9 years now, very much traditionally focused in product analytics, but as I'll come on to talk about, once you understand how your users are behaving and the actions that are taking place within your digital channels, then it becomes really valuable information for how you go and drive other actions. And that can be looking at actually how do I create cohorts to go and drive targeted marketing campaigns? How do I use the information I gather to drive personalization experiences through my apps? Or actually, how do I start to use those behavioral signals to decide, A/B tests and start to track the impacts of things like A/B testing? There's also a really good chance that actually on a day-to-day basis, you're probably interacting and engaging with applications and sites out there that are leveraging the power of Amplitude. So, we work with some of the leading organizations globally to help them drive better customer experiences through their digital apps. So, really looking at, what is the impact of new feature releases, what features are users engaging with and their best users engaging with, and then how can they use those insights to try and drive a better customer experience for everyone. And clearly we see, and hopefully through the conversation you'll see with Max, the better you can understand what users are doing, the more personalized you can make that experience, the better you can make your product, and ultimately you can drive better retention and engagement, which is going to lead to loyalty of your users. So for those of you that maybe have heard of Amplitude or looked at us in the past, you'll probably know us more from the left-hand side here. So, an analytics provider platform that enables, really anyone within your business, whether it be a product manager, a growth manager, marketing, or, an analyst or someone from your business intelligence team, to start to look at, key KPIs within your product, how you start to monitor and improve your products, how you start to identify key drivers or features that are moving the needle in terms of user engagement. Where we've really started to move to is then, as I said before, using that data to drive specific actions. Actually, how can I start to create cohorts that I move to an engagement tool to try and engage those users in a specific way, and then bring that back into Amplitude to measure the success of things like marketing campaigns? How do I start to drive recommendations? So if someone has done one action in my site, based on what we know about them, how can we drive more targeted recommendations to them? And then moving back into actually, how do we run more sophisticated A/B tests and using different cohorts of users and looking at not just the immediate impact of that test, but actually the longer term impact and how that is driving things like retention or lifetime value of our users. And really where we see us playing, and again, hopefully this will come out in the conversation with Max, is a lot of organizations and customers we talk to have got tools in place that are helping them to look at some of these kind of key surface KPIs. So how do we look at what click-through rates are, or what page views, or who's coming to visit our site, but actually probably not really set up to drive more sophisticated insights. So how do we understand at a high level, and then really drive into detail kind of specifics around behavioral cohorts? How do we compare behaviors of different cohorts? How do we start to look at what are the key features that are driving retention? And that is where we have a platform that enables you to drive those levels of insights. And the final thing before I move on to the conversation with Max is that Amplitude is a tool that should be used by many people within a business. So ultimately, we are known as a product analytics platform, and therefore we have a lot of product managers that use us without being dependent on their analyst or BI teams. But this is a platform that has a central common data set that enables you to collaborate across teams. So whether that is product, marketing, engineering, helping to understand the impact of their kind of work and their new releases, and have a very low floor and a high ceiling. So whilst a relatively data immature PM might be able to come and use us, at the same time, a very sophisticated data scientist or someone from your BI team can get very high value out of us as well. So thank you for bearing with me whilst I went through that. I guess now I'm going to move on to introduce Max. And we can dig into specifically how Max and the team at Nutmeg have been using Amplitude to drive value over the last couple of years. So Max, thank you for joining us. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and Nutmeg for those that may not be familiar with you.
Great. Thanks, Chris, and thanks for joining. So my name is Max Ray, head of product here at Nutmeg. I've been at Nutmeg now for just over, or nearly approaching 2 years. Originally joined as a senior product manager looking after our kind of marketing and customer service product, but eventually kind of moved on and branched out to wider parts of our product here at Nutmeg. So very passionate about building a great experience for our customers and clients, whether that's the small kind of little moments that we can impact their lives or something a little bit bigger. But I guess a bit about Nutmeg. It's important, not everyone's aware of who we are and what we do. So Nutmeg is really about challenging the status quo of the investment industry, which has previously been pretty inaccessible, complex, or really expensive for a lot of customers. And we feel that the people have actually been let down or ignored by long-established wealth managers. That's why it's our mission to really democratize wealth management by combining the best elements of the traditional wealth management industry, as well as some of our own proprietary technology. And what this really means is that we can deliver a service that is offers smarter trading and reduced costs. So we can all provide a platform for our higher net worth individuals who can reduce their investment costs with us, but also for the broader section of society with less to invest, but can start for investing for as little as £100 to open an account with any of our kind of tax wrappers. So really trying to offer a product and service for all sections of society. And I guess a little bit about kind of our customer base. So this is a conversation about data. So it's probably worth learning a little bit about who invests with Nutmeg. But the average age of a Nutmeg customer is 39. Pretty equal split between male and female investors. A little bit higher on men, but actually a lot of women are now coming in to invest with Nutmeg more recently over the last kind of 12 months. Especially since kind of COVID happened and more people are now considering investing with a bit more free time. But yeah, that's a bit about kind of, I guess, the background. We were founded in 2012, and now we've grown to have over 140,000 customers in the UK and over £3.5 billion of assets under management. So come a long way over the last 7 or 8 years, or 9 years actually now that Nutmeg's been around. So really exciting to be here today, talk to you about analytics.
Thanks, Max. You mentioned, obviously, I guess your mission to help democratize investment. Like when you take that and I guess put it to your level as a product team who are responsible for that platform that drives the engagement, what do those goals or missions look like for you? How does that roll down?
Yeah, so I mean, really, it's about trying to drive regular engagement. So, like a traditional wealth manager might say, bring your assets to us, and we'll have a conversation with you once a year, right? We want to have a conversation with you every day. We've got mobile apps, web app experience for our customers, and so we want to be able to provide them tangible insights every single day, whether that's about their portfolio or direct insights from our investment team in house, our blog where we go in depth on potentially some macro or micro events that are happening out there. So we're all about trying to drive that kind of regular engagement and regular login behavior and engagement, just like any digital product that you might have out there.
Great, thank you. So if you kind of roll back, and obviously you've been an Amplitude customer for a little while now, but what made Nutmeg initially start to look for a product analytics solution?
Yeah, so this is actually a little bit before my time. We used a number of different analytics products. So I think just as I was joining, we were kind of rolling off about 3 or 4 different products that different parts of the business were using. So it was very fragmented. And what that meant was kind of the insights that we were getting might be completely different because we didn't have a single source of truth in terms of where we were collecting data, how we were analyzing it. And that caused some really challenges across the business when you're trying to get insights, make decisions, drive an impact for our customers and for the company. So there's a big push to kind of unify towards a single platform that was, A, easy to use, B, provided the richness of insight that more experienced users of these types of tools would need, but that anyone in the company could pick up and really run with. And so that's really kind of one of the key things that we're looking for. So we went with Amplitude as part of our tech stack. Okay.
You mentioned it was a little bit before you, but I guess maybe as you came into the business, what did you see the impact of that being in terms of getting lots of different sources? Like how were your product teams, I guess, making decisions and prioritizing development of the product prior to having that single source of truth?
Yeah, I mean, when we brought on Amplitude, and we kind of from the ground up, we really focused on the data taxonomy and making sure that when we created the events, we had a standardization across all of our product domains to make sure that we had consistency. And what we started to see was just the adoption of the tool, not just in the product team to make easier and better decisions, but actually we started to see some adoption across some of our other functions. And I could talk a little bit more about that later on. But what that meant is that we could really, I talk about democratizing wealth management, but actually we democratized insights across the company because actually we had a single source of truth and it was easier to get buy-in. Whereas before you might have finance having a source of data which sits in one location, maybe some BI tooling that we use. You have the marketing team using a different tool and you have product teams using different tools. And so once we were able to come together with one, it made it a lot easier and clearer to make better decision-making, really.
Well, one of the things we get a lot from new organizations we talk to is that's a common model, right? Having a central BI team and common BI tools that we're probably all familiar with, and product teams being reliant on those individuals and those teams to give them insight. So I guess we'll kind of come on to talk about perhaps some of the experiences and what you've achieved with Amplitude, but do you have visibility of like what the process looked like to get those insights before? Like typically we see it, 3-4 weeks of getting a question answered from a product team, which then probably drives 4 or 5 additional questions. And actually one of the things that, especially in your world, is that speed to insight and speed to then take action on it. Have you seen a dramatic change in that? Yeah,
no, it's a great question. We used to have like a Jira ticketing system for kind of raising central tickets. And so it's a great example where, someone raises a question and they get a response back. You're like, maybe it takes 3-4 days, depending on how busy the data team is, a week, maybe someone goes on holiday, that kind of thing. They get an answer, they get, a response back. Maybe it's a CSV or a look within Looker or something like that. But then that raises 6, 7, 8 other questions. and they're having to go back and raise additional requests. And it was creating a bottleneck, and we just couldn't get the insights quick enough. But what we found with Amplitude, it's just so user friendly. We've got people who've never had experience with analytics tools who are now up and running and using it every single day. I look at the usage dashboards, and it's product's a heavy user, but I'm seeing people in client services who are top 10 in terms of users of Amplitude within the organization, because it's so easy and so simple to pick up, and be able to kind of get answers and insights from Amplitude. So it's been a big impact since we rolled out.
Great. But perhaps you can kind of dig into that a little bit. What would you say were some of the experiences or some of the things that you would say you've achieved as a result of having that speed to insight and the ability to really kind of get a consistent view of what your users are doing?
Yeah, so I mean, there's I guess a few things there. We spent a lot of time, as I said, making sure the data taxonomy was great, and really focusing on that from the beginning as best we could, because we knew that was going to pay dividends down the line. We then each domain really took ownership, product engineering domain, for creating all the reporting and dashboards for their area, and kind of signposting those within Amplitude. So there's there's a favoriting feature, an official dashboard feature where we can really mark, okay, these are the official dashboards. And what that really did for us is it built trust when other users of Amplitude who aren't as familiar with the product might come in and be looking around for some insights, maybe about login behavior or insights about payments. They know that they can go to a single source of truth. So that time we put up front with each of those domain experts to invest some time to really highlight to the business what are the important ones. So that was really key. We also spent a lot of time with different areas running kind of deep dive sessions and teaching people about Amplitude and the value of it. So we ran webinars across the company, getting people to join, learn about the product, why it's important, what they can get out of it as a stakeholder and a different function of the business, because they might not be as interested in the same kind of analytics as we are, but trying to bring to life some use cases for them, which we can talk about in a little bit. And then one of the things that we've done maybe in the last 6 months, which we're really happy with, is we've started to move some of our data science, or all of our data science reporting, into Amplitude. So previously, whenever we'd run experimentations, we'd have to build like Jupyter notebooks, which would take maybe a day or two for our data scientists to whip up and then share with a wider audience. And they're quite technical. Whereas now we're sending all of our experiment groups and control groups direct to Amplitude, which means that we can start to filter on all the events and start to build dashboards for every single experiment we run and get results within seconds, which might take a couple of days before. So that's been a massive win for us, and really helps champion the data science agenda that we're trying to do within Nutmeg.
Great. I think what's interesting with that is hopefully driving cultural change. We talk a lot with our customers, prospects about Amplitude as a platform, what we can do, but actually there has to be that desire to culturally change the way that you are using data. So do you think we've been an enabler for that, or was that already a journey you're on in terms of trying to drive awareness and and improve the maturity in terms of how you as a business look to use data?
It's been a big step forward. So I mean, a couple good examples of things that we've done with kind of some other functions. So, for example, our marketing teams, they want they want to be able to see the effectiveness of a campaign. Yeah, they can look at open rates, click-through rates, but they want to be able to see, if I'm trying to speak to a customer about opening a pension, how many actually went on to go and open a pension, or about setting a direct debit, or whatever that kind of action might be. We ran some sessions with our CRM team to actually say, you can create cohorts within Amplitude. So they could basically pull that email list down, upload a list of unique IDs, and then all of a sudden to be able to sort of see what are the behaviors off the back end of these customers that I've emailed, and actually looking at when that email was sent, what did we see after that, and so they can start to then do some analysis even further into that specific email campaign. So that has been really effective. One of the other things worked with finance on was looking at kind of our customer vintages or cohorts going back in time. So customers who joined in 2013, 14, 15, etc., uploading them as cohorts within Amplitude, and then being able to look at the kind of the user behavior and how that's maybe evolving over time and how that's changing with different cohorts. Because we have lots of data in our kind of central BI tool within Looker, which is very helpful. But for us to be able to see that user behavior, how they're interacting on a day-to-day basis with our applications, or different journeys has been really big for the company.
Interesting. Did you find anything, I guess, particularly in that piece of work, when you're looking at the different behaviors of people that start to come into the platform, did you find anything particularly insightful there that then drives how you look to either engage with them or how you look to kind of drive the experience in the platform?
Yeah, I mean, we saw some different depositing behaviors specifically around customers who maybe joined us 7-8 years ago compared to more recent customers. And I'm thinking namely around kind of debit card or, we have take debit card payments or open banking payments, which is one of our other form factors. And we were seeing that, some customers have been with us for a long time. They have some established behaviors and habits. They've been using the product for a long time, very comfortable with debit card payments, but we weren't seeing them adopting maybe open banking as quickly as some of our other cohorts of customers. So really looking at how we introduced those customers to open banking payments and what's the value, why it's great, it's faster, your funds will be traded into your portfolio quicker, and start to kind of engage those customers, whether that's through CRM or within the product itself. So yeah, lots of great insights we pulled from that.
Okay, great. Just looping back to the marketing point, I think it's a really interesting use case, certainly for looking at the longer term impact of marketing campaigns. I think it's also something that maybe not all marketing teams are ready for. We have a lot of people out there use tools like GA, which are great and have a purpose in terms of like, I want to, we've done this campaign and this is what is driven to landing pages on the site, or landings on the site. Actually, then driving that through to, like 10 steps beyond that, like who has then opened, to your point, an account, who has then come back and engaging with content every day for, the next week, and, really kind of looking at the long-term impact. Again, I think a lot of that comes back to culturally engaging with, I don't know, almost accountability to kind of make sure that you're all looking at what is important to the business and try and drive those outcomes.
Yeah, and I think it's about, relating to that stakeholder or that part of the business. What are the goals that they're trying to do, and how you can make it easier for them, because that's really what it comes down to, and being able to share some of that, through Amplitude. And I think one of the things I've found is just, being familiar with kind of their goals, and then even just picking out, building a chart here or there and just sharing it with them, saying, I found this little bit of insight. Do you think this would be useful? Would this help you in your next campaign? Have a look. And then just that alone is almost a way to get them hooked and start using the product and learning a little bit more about it, and then starting to self-serve really. So that's something that, the marketing team is definitely a big user of now. Okay.
You mentioned the early users and trying to drive them to use things like open banking, but in general, is there a feature you could look at and say that that's something that you've rolled out as a result of the insights you found as to how your users are behaving?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are probably worth highlighting. So one of it was a really small feature, but it was a really kind of clever one, and for kind of the product managers out there who are counting story points, it's a great one. So we were seeing that a lot of our customers were logging in, viewing their balance, their performance, and maybe going to a few other locations, but not on a regular basis, like diving into the product, really deeply all the time. And one of the things that they weren't necessarily discovering, they might have kind of regular depositing behavior, but we weren't seeing them basically go and activate a direct debit or create a monthly payment. So one of the things that we were looking at is actually where are they spending a lot of their time, and what they were doing is they were logging into the app and going into what we call kind of the pot screen, where they actually can view some more cards with some more information about their portfolio. And that was getting really high engagement. Your customers were going there all the time, finding it really, really valuable, and then logging up. And so what we did is we subtly just, if they had a direct debit, or if they didn't have an active direct debit on that particular pot or portfolio, we would just have a little basically call to action and say inactive direct debit. And if they just click that, they could go through the flow and activate a direct debit. And we just ran it as a quick little test to see if it worked. It was only 3 story points, got it out quickly. And all of a sudden, within days, direct debits went through the roof. Just that subtle little piece where we're seeing customers engaging on that part of the screen with really high engagement, that little touch made a big difference. So that was pretty exciting. We landed last year.
Nice. Excellent. How, I guess, I have to ask this question given the circumstances we're all living in today, but how have you seen maybe usage of your product platform changed? You touched on it briefly, but during COVID, I know there's been a lot of press around, individuals investing and kind of taking control a little bit more of their finances. But how have you seen that, and how have you seen that kind of play out through the insights and analytics?
Yeah, so I guess there's like a company angle and then there's the kind of product angle, right? So, I mean, we were, given our scale and position, UK's largest digital wealth manager, we were actually in a pretty good position at the kind of the start of COVID, March last year. And we always believed, we set ourselves apart from customers by doing, the right thing for the customers. And that was really kind of how we positioned ourselves. So we were in a pretty good space from a brand perspective and our core product. But what we saw, pretty quickly when everything happened is, login behavior and just general engagement skyrocketed. Regular deposits also went up. People had more disposable income for, again, a certain segment of the population, obviously, had more disposable income. And so we saw more people logging into mobile, more people logging into web. And started to think about some of their longer term goals in savings investments. That's why we're getting a lot of traffic. In fact, we saw our weekly active users jump 28.5% last year. So pretty big, and it was held pretty steady throughout the entire year. So we've seen a pretty big increase there. And it's not just about, we talked about, looking at their valuation or their performance, but actually going into reading about the blog, accessing other tools and service from us. So we've seen pretty high engagement and I guess a demand for even more and a richer product from our customers, which is great because the more feedback we get, the better we can make it for our customers.
Okay, great. I'm just going to pause. There's a couple of questions. The first one, Max, is definitely for you. I don't know if this is a fair one to ask, but what do you think is the future of wealth management organizations in a post-pandemic world? Do you have a view of that? Maybe that's something we might be able to respond to offline, but I hope you don't mind me asking that question of you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I will give that a go in terms of this is my view. In a post-pandemic world, so I think
if there is such a thing.
If there is such a thing, yeah. So I think digital wealth manager, we're a digital wealth manager, but there's other digital banking and investment products out there. I think this has, we've basically been a gateway for a lot of customers who maybe have never gotten into investing. So there's a lot, especially in the UK, there's a lot of customers that have savings balances that have never got involved with investing before. And this is kind of, they've had a chance to sit back, reflect. They've seen, we're no way advocating for kind of what you've seen like in the meme stock space, because that's not what we believe is the right kind of investing model. But it's got a lot of people thinking about investing. And maybe they read that article on BBC News, the Financial Times, and they thought, okay, let me look into this a bit further. So as a result, lots of customers have been getting into investing. So I think it's just going to grow over time. I don't think people's appetite will change. We offer a mix between a digital and human experience. I think people will still want both. I don't think automatically everyone's going to go just say, I only want a digital product or I only want a face-to-face product. I think there's that hybrid that will always exist. But definitely more and more people in the UK are getting involved. And you can see with the emergence of not just ourselves, but other investing apps out there.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And the second question is related to, I guess, the ROI of Amplitude. So I can come on to that, but the specific question is, how have Nutmeg calculated the return on investment of Amplitude within your business? Yeah.
So I guess the way we approached it was a bit of an experiment. So we started with, I think it was a starter plan, or I can't remember what it's actually called, but basically it's a free plan which gives you access to some of the capability and a certain number of events per month. Because again, we didn't necessarily want to commit straight away. We've been using different tools. We obviously hadn't found the right one, so we didn't want to kind of jump all in with both feet. So we started with the starter plan. And we basically just started hitting the ceiling on the capability because everyone was using it. We were pushing more and more events there. All of our product analytics were then fed through there. And as we started to see other functions adopt Amplitude as a product, and they started getting value out of it, that's when we started to see that the ROI look really good. Because it wasn't just about the product team getting value from it. It was about the entire company getting value.
Yeah, thank you. And I think just to expand on that, I think, we see that as well. It's sometimes difficult to look at ROI of a product decision immediately, but ultimately, starting to tie things like, new product developments to retention, and therefore, depending on your business, if it's a subscription model or what that looks like in terms of driving new users to the site, you can start to kind of look at that as ROI. And I think, to your point, Max, as well, as you start to get broader adoption of the platform, you start to tie things like marketing efficiency and the impact of marketing campaigns to how you track an Amplitude and then how you optimize it. We have a lot of customers start to look at like attribution, so where are users coming from, and then leveraging Amplitude to look at actually, based on the source of our users or marketing campaign, who's retaining the highest over time and who's the highest lifetime value users, doubling down decisions on where you're going to go and drive new users from, or how you're going to kind of take different cohorts of users and effectively drive up the value from them. So there's multiple different ways. I think the broader the adoption across teams definitely helps in terms of justifying that ROI as well. Okay, great. It sounds like, and if anyone's got any more questions, please do put them in the box. It sounds like, Max, every decision you're making with Nutmeg today, kind of give or take, is really based on data and based on that kind of evidential insight. So is that true? And is there a really kind of rigorous process, I guess, particularly from a product development perspective of when you're looking at where you're going to place your bets, using the data up front and then tracking that beyond, actually rolling out new features?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just Amplitude. We use all forms of data, but it's core to decision making, right? We're not a massive company. We're a fairly small company, based primarily in London, and so we, the bets that we need to take, we need to be very thoughtful about, because it is a big investment and it does take time. So yeah, it's all part of the decision process, through our product discovery process, where there might be an idea or a customer problem we're trying to solve. PMs and the design team will spend a lot of time, customer research, but also customer data in terms of how customers are interacting, to help make those decisions. And yeah, it's part of kind of all the kind of key decision making that we do here at Nutmeg, for sure. And that's just something that we've embedded kind of throughout the process, not just at one phase. So you talked about at the launch. So no feature or product will go out without tracking and proper events in place and all the dashboards set up so that we can measure everything from the moment we go live. And that's just kind of best practice that we put in place, because it's just fundamental that we need to understand the experience that our customers are going through, not just from we want to make the product better, but also from a reliability perspective. Are there certain journeys that are broken, that people are just getting stuck in? Those kind of really basic kind of usability aspects as well that are really key to our product.
Is there a team or an owner within Nutmeg around upskilling on data maturity and kind of ensuring that everyone is not just capable of getting the insights, but confident of the insights and then the actions they take? Is that a central team's responsibility, or is that really being delegated out as well?
Yeah, we have a distributed model, really. So each product domain will have a PM associated with it, and they'll be the owner of those events, right? In collaboration with engineering as well. But they'll be the ones that need to understand it, to maintain it. When there's new features added, make sure the events are in place. If features are deprecated, they're removed, etc., and maintaining that. And then basically, we then get them to kind of share that knowledge across within the product team, so that everyone within the product team has a good understanding. But then they're really the SME. So if, let's say, client services wants to understand a bit more about payment behavior of our customers, they know to go to the PM that looks after our payment services, and they'll work with them to understand a bit further. But yeah, we definitely have a federated model rather than a central team.
Great. I think last couple of questions, then we can open it up as well. So we've spoken about how you got the decision, like what your environment looked like, I guess, prior to you joining and prior to the decision to centralize down to one tool. How do you see this evolving in the future? By either usage of Amplitude or just in general, how you're looking to leverage insights around user behavior to continue to optimize and improve the experience you deliver?
Yeah, definitely. So I touched on some of the machine learning and personalization work. Well, I said personalization work that we're doing. But we're doing a lot of reinforcement learning and machine learning here at Nutmeg, and feeding those events and those properties to Amplitude. to improve kind of our analytics, and that's really where we're focusing a lot of time and energy. We have a really good framework in place for our core product, but we're starting to put more and more effort into the experimentation that we do, and embedding that within the Amplitude product itself, so that our data science team and our product teams can run experiments and run them at scale. Whereas before, we could run them, but it was lots of manual work. But now we can turn them out a lot quicker, and not just through the kind of personalization optimization space. We do a lot within our onboarding flow as well, with those product and engineering teams, and that's a really big focus for us going forward. And I'd say the experimentation definitely.
Yeah, great. And I think a lot of organizations that bring in tools like Amplitude are focused on experimentation. That ability to really iterate quickly, very obviously and quickly and simply find the impact of those experiments and either double down or stop if they're not having the right effect. Is that, again, that seems like that's part of the culture and the DNA within Nutmeg of how you continue to kind of push boundaries, test, experiment to drive better customer experience. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, kind of we talked about before, right? We have to be careful about where we place our bets and where we really spend our energy. So experimentation is part of that, right? It helps de-risk some of that decision making because you're learning from customers. Obviously, we do lots of customer testing up front through research, through user testing, through regular feedback we get from our customers. But being able to see how customers react with the product in a real environment is just completely different. Someone may say, yeah, I really like it like this, but actually when you start to see them use the product, they're using it in a completely different way than what you thought when you intended to. So yeah, really focusing on what we can learn up front, and experimentation and A/B testing, multivariate testing is a great way to do that.
Great, good. Max, I think that's kind of the end of what I wanted to cover off, so thank you. There is one question in here at the moment, which is perhaps a great way to conclude the chat as well, which is what is next for Nutmeg?
What is next for Nutmeg? Great question. Yeah. So, we've had a great last couple of years. The business has grown. Our brand is doing really well. We have over 140,000 customers and £3.5 billion of AUM. So, we've grown really well. What's next for us is just continuing to build out our experience for our customers. So greater breadth of product, depth of product. We've got a lot of stuff that is on the cusp of launching. So if you are a Nutmeg customer, keep your eyes peeled over the next couple of months. There's some fun stuff landing. But really just about investing in our experience for our customers and continue to build it out further. We've got a really exciting roadmap over the next year, and looking forward to landing some of those products with customers.
Great, thank you. And thank you for taking the time out as well to do this. We certainly appreciate it. And I hope there's been some good insights and help the audience understand both how you think about leveraging data and particularly how Amplitude can support you in doing that. So thank you, Max. Great,
thanks for having me.
Perfect. Yeah, I really enjoyed the chat. Thanks. So thanks both for coming along. Yeah, really interested to keep an eye on Nutmeg in the future, I think, from my perspective. For everyone at home, this session will be available on demand almost instantly. So if there's anything from any part of the chat you'd like to go through again, or maybe some of the visuals from the start, just click on it. It'll have a normal play bar on there, so you can pause and rewind for any bits you want to see. There's a couple of attachments on the webinar, so you can find a little bit more about Amplitude. There's also a link to register for Big Data London in September as well. So do that. And thank you both our speakers today, and thanks for coming along, and we'll see you at the next one. Okay, thanks guys. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.